this, which gets them to think about actually what are their goals and how are they going to achieve them. So are they on track for achieving these goals? And what is it that we're going to do today that's going to actually enable that to happen? And we found making the English learning relevant to our students had a massive impact in terms of their engagement and attitude to learning in English. So, Kath, I'm going to come to you first because you're our strand leader. Do you ever think about one of the areas?
I think I'd like to be a more confident person in 5 years' time.
Yeah, me too, definitely. Do you feel like you're on track? Do you feel like you're on track to becoming more of a confident person?
It's a bit late in the day, but yes, I think so.
It's never too late in the day.
Yeah.
Never too late. How is what you're doing today, like taking part in this event, how is that helping you become more of a confident person, do you think?
I think, well, learning new skills, being able to communicate with people more effectively, I think, and just knowing that you can develop in whatever stage of life you happen to be in. So, yeah.
So you can see the purpose and relevance.
It's a continual process, really, and I think just reflecting on what you have achieved sometimes helps you to realise that, I do feel more confident. I do feel better about things.
Absolutely, and I think especially as a strands lead, Kath, when you see like when we all present, it does add confidence to yourself as well in terms of how you're guiding us all. So so that was just an example of how we're looking at what we're doing today and trying to find kind of the positives in it, and it's something that we would do with our students. So I just wanted to demonstrate that to you guys as one of the type of activities we've been doing to build resilience. Thank you, Claire. Could you move on to the next slide? So our intent with our project was to confront explicitly the issues and attitudes relating to the self and learning, to keep students focused on their future goals and the steps they need to take in order to achieve their goals, and support them in the development of their confidence and self-belief. And the reason we were doing that, I'll come on to the why in a second, but the biggest reason we kind of embarked on this project is that we found that with recent learners, the biggest challenge we face is actually their own self-belief and their own attitude to learning, and that is actually a huge barrier, and we need to actually solve this problem before we even begin teaching them English. Without the right mindset, without the right engagement, how can we begin to build those higher order skills that they need to do in the exam? So if you could go to the next slide, Claire, that'd be lovely. So as I said, the why is a significant barrier to making progress in English is the lack of self-belief. They've been told coming from secondary that they are failures because they didn't achieve this all-important grade 4, which is absolutely heartbreaking, and they carry that into the classroom with them, and they genuinely believe that this is just going to be reaffirmed for them by sitting in your class for another year doing a subject they don't really want to do. Hence why it's important for us to find relevance in their learning to their own lives, but also to motivate them so that they believe that they're not failures and that they can do well, they can show academic achievement. So what we found is that 80% really want to get the GCSE because they would like to they need the GCSE to do the things they want to in 5 years' time or in 3 years' time or to pass their academic course. But actually less than 17% believed that they would achieve. And we found without the belief in yourself, how can you achieve? Without believing you can do it, you know, that mindset was self-perpetuating, which could have been one of the obstacles that have kind of in place, stopping them from achieving their GCSE. So that was why we decided to focus on resilience. Thank you, Claire. So what we did is we developed a resilient scheme of work, and embedded it into the delivery of GCSE English language and functional skills classes to develop students' self-efficacy and learning. So initially that was just done by myself and the project lead, Emma Island. We developed a kind of medium-term plan at the start of the year with some very common, which combated some common attitudes to we face in the classroom. When that didn't work at the start of the year, we then drew on the expertise of our staff to build on ideas and develop resources which responded to their individual classes. So I think this was a key point in our project where we recognised the professionalism of our staff and recognised their experience and thought about what they could contribute to the project as well. And it really led to a whole turning point, not just in terms of how successful I feel like our project was last year, but actually in terms of the mindsets of our staff and how they were approaching an action research project when they got a stake in it. So we met regularly to review the progress and continue to refine our approach to mindset for learning throughout the year. And by the end of the year, we had 32 weeks worth of resources that directly and explicitly combated kind of low levels of resilience, poor mindset for learning in the classroom, and was very specific to the type of students that we had at the Sheffield College, whether that was learners in a motor vehicle class or a science class or an IT level 3, we had resources for all of them. So if anyone would like to see our resilient scheme of work, I can just ask Claire or Catherine and they'll pass along mine and Emma's email, and we're quite happy to share that with everyone. So just a note at the end, involvement in this action research project enables a cohesive and collaborative and consistent approach. So I think being part of the strands last year, it really helps that consistency that we didn't necessarily have before. We had some staff doing some things, other staff doing other things, and being part of this really helped us kind of refine that and kind of, yeah, made our team really consistent in how we're approaching mindset. Thank you, Claire. I think we've got a couple more slides. Sorry, I think we had a couple more slides to show.
I'm sort of conscious of time, Charlotte, if you
Sure,
don't mind.
Not a problem. I'll rush through it, but it's mainly just a Padlet. I think the next bit. Yeah, so I'll share the link to this Padlet in the chat. So Padlet shows you what impacts our project has had on students and staff this year, but I think quite most remarkably the impact it's had on staff and how actually our staff's mindset themselves has had a really big impact on learners. At the beginning, because obviously we're all so busy, it was really difficult to get everyone on board and actually get them motivated to do the project. And by asking staff to look at their own attitudes and beliefs within the classroom, that really helped us kind of push our project forward last year. So have a little look at it. That shows you kind of some of the testimonials about how staff found the project and what students said, so that's quite interesting. And then if you could go to the next slides, Claire, that'd be lovely. So to follow on this year, this is what we've been doing. So to kind of continue to develop our project, we've started to identify themes that came out of last year. So different things that different teachers focused on in their own their own action research. So the themes that developed were teachers developing and refining approaches to managing activities and discussions, developing and delivering activities which link closely with the GCSE English language and functional skills assessment objectives, and focusing closely on the language and its power in framing learning experiences in relation to resilience. So we've perhaps got about 3 or 4 teachers focusing on each theme, and we're really exploring how our activities and mindset scheme of work are impacting in those areas. And then last slide, Claire, sorry, I'm aware of time. One more, sorry. Next one along. And these are kind of our interim findings. I'll just let you read through those. I won't read them to you, but those are the kind of things that we're finding now after kind of taking this thematic approach to mindset. And that's it from me.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. That was really interesting. It's great that you've had the opportunity to follow and build on last year's work. Does anyone have any questions for Charlotte before we move on? You're still there? Anybody?
Yeah, I've got one. So, oh, go on. Sorry. I was just going to, lots of people put in chat, Charlotte, that they would wondered if you could share that scheme of work that you had. I've put the link through to OTLA 6, but I wasn't sure if it was in your appendices to the project or not.
Yeah, so there's a few examples of the type of resources we use. We've produced the entire scheme of work to share as well. So I'll pop my email in the chat, and if you would like it, just feel free to contact me.
That's really generous of you. Thank you.
How did you get over any cynicism? Because I think when we talk about mindsets and we talk about these kind of activities, there's always a voice in the room that says, oh, you know, that's very woolly. How is it going to work? What did you do to help people to see what benefits it could have for their learners?
I think that, yeah, that's a good point. We've definitely had a lot of that. And I think because I think there is a lot of very kind of grey and woolly mindset things out there. Like I really like Carol's work, but not all of her things apply to every context. So people take some of her concepts and they find them really difficult to apply within their setting. So what we came up with then was like a really solid process for being able to apply concepts around mindsets into our specific context. And I think by contextualizing it and coming up with that framework, it really allowed staff to see the benefit and also gave them, as I said, a stake in what we were doing and their own opinion and their own planning. And we always work together as a team on that. So it also, we had that real kind of community of learning as a team ourselves around this idea of mindset and resilience.
Okay, thank you very much. Shall we move on to the next project now? It's Anne and Sophie, please, from Rees Heath. Are you okay to present yours?
I'm
Yes.
going to, fine, thanks.
Hi.
I'm going to attempt to share my screen, guys. We're not Zoom people, we're Microsoft people. Bear with me 1 second.
I bet they're transferable skills, I reckon.
We'll find out, won't we, Claire?
That's our get out clause, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. I can share my whole desktop, can't I? Because I need to flip between things. Right. So can we all see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Shall I start, Soph?
Yeah, you go. Just turn around.
So we're a double act from Rees Heath College. I'm Manchester, and
Oh, sorry, and I'm Sophie.
so our project is all about working with GCSE English language learners, so research students, to develop their knowledge and retention of vocabulary. Thanks, Soph. So just as Charlotte described, our learners are your typical English research students, low levels of engagement, and, you know, those problems surrounding confidence and motivation. Now, Sophie and I shared a class last year, and we were just talking about the class as we got to around kind of April, May time. And we realized that one of the things, apart from those lacking in confidence problems, that one of the reasons that they really struggled with everything to do with their GCSE was just very limited vocabularies. Thanks, Sophie, if you can move on. And I mean, linked to this as well, just how we quite often felt bombarded by everything around us, and, you know, this bombardment of information in our lives and how it's very difficult to take everything in. We thought, if we're feeling like this, then how must our learners be feeling? With the best will in the world, we present them with all these new unseen texts and expect them to really take on board the new vocabulary that they're presented with each lesson. And they're just not given the opportunity to consolidate any of that vocabulary before moving on to the next lesson. So as part of our marketing drive, we were going to have a whole launch for the project, but we thought, you know what, we'll put a video together and this will be a really good way of communicating what we're doing. So I'm just going to apologise to Claire in advance now, because Claire very kindly put a little clip together where she was introducing the project, but I'm just wondering whether we could clip you out, Claire, because we might not have time for the whole video. Would that be okay? All right, so should we play, Soph?
Yeah, so I'm just going to pop it on from, we've got some really beautiful interviews with some students about how they feel about language and sophisticated vocab. So so this promotional video, we're going to really try and use and expose people to get buy into the project. So this is just a tiny snippet of it, really. So let me I did have it all set up, but for some reason we're not quite in the right place. So I'm just going to start you off here. There we go. Make it a bit bigger.
Not anxiety, but just sort of think like, ooh, what now? And I have to sort of think probably a bit longer than most people on what to describe and how to describe it.
With this in mind, we're really lucky to have this opportunity to be able to explore ways to improve vocabulary and methods that help our learners to retain the new words they encounter, rather than forgetting them as soon as they leave our lessons. First and foremost, we're acknowledging that learning new words properly is a whole process, and we want to slow things down accordingly. To start with, we've selected 10 words, and we're going to focus our attention on activities which help learners use these words frequently and properly. We'll make sure that everyone is confident in using the vocabulary actively in speaking and writing before moving on to the next 10 words. Our ultimate goal would be for our students to be able to confidently select and use these 10 sophisticated words, potentially helping them to achieve their GCSE, but also building confidence and resilience.
Never really suited me, word maths. Just get a better understanding of what I'm reading, if I do read.
On most of the vocabulary, but don't always understand it all.
I try and like ignore bigger words than the word I just used. Sometimes find it difficult, but I think I get there in the end. It's a bigger word.
I find it hard sometimes to think of like bigger words and stuff. I get it, did it like in high school, but I feel like you've done it enough finally. I think that's why I have to carry it on.
I get really confused because I didn't learn a lot of this in high school, so it's easy for me to lose track of it. My mind wanders easily, so as soon as I lose track, it's another 20 minutes and I don't know what we're doing.
So just going to stop it there, guys. Hope you could all hear that. Let me just go back into our presentation. And do you want to carry on, or do you want me to?
Shall I just do the next few slides, so and then so this is just showing kind of where the red line is. This is actually the mark scheme. You're probably familiar with this, those of you that teach GCSE, but this is the AQA mark scheme for writing. So at the moment, in terms of vocabulary, our learners are using very simple vocabulary. Maybe our better learners are just in that lower level 2 for AO5, where they're beginning to vary vocabulary. And then similarly for AO6, which is technical accuracy, most of our learners simple, some using varied. Where we really want them to be is for AO5, that upper level 2, moving to lower level 3. So really moving up a whole level. So really using conscious use of vocabulary and even choosing vocabulary for effect because they feel confident with the words that we're exposing them to. And for the technical accuracy side of things, yeah, being able to spell those words, use them in the right context. So again, moving up a level.
So just really briefly, so we're kind of at a stage now where actually we're only just rolling out activities in the classroom to start to embed these new words, and that's because we spent such a long time researching the words and interviewing the students and kind of trying to ascertain where they're at with their language knowledge. So initially, Anne and I spent quite a long time going through AQA mark scheme answers. We're both examiners anyway, but we collaborated and came with a list of about 80 words, and then we wanted to get that down to about 10 words. So we spoke to the English team and we spoke to the students, and it was really interesting, the feedback that we got from the students. So this is just a sample that you can see on the screen of some of the feedback. So we asked them to look at what words they were familiar with and words that they felt confident that they could use. And it was interesting because they were saying that they were familiar with some quite sophisticated vocabulary, but when we asked them to use it in sentences, it was quite clear that they really weren't. So they may have higher expectations of their ability than they actually had. So we did lots of activities looking at different words and then asked them to put them in sentences. And I'll just leave those up for a minute for you, because you can see that quite a lot of the sentences have not used the words in the correct format, really. So we realised actually that we were going to have to look at even more simplistic, sophisticated vocab than we had originally thought, which was quite a learning curve for us. So we came up with our 10 words. They're the words that you could see on video and on here. We've got lots of bookmarks, which are a learning resource to go in the classrooms and to give to basically anyone we can, to tell them about the project, to get people talking about sophisticated vocab around the college, and to try and get people just really buzzing about what sophisticated vocab is. And then we're in the process of sort of rolling out our 10-week scheme of work. So it'll be a new word each week, basically, with lots of little activities. So there's an example here. I'll not share it because we haven't really got time. It's a similar to a Kahoot, really, but it's a Microsoft form activity just to assess prior knowledge of the word defy. So these are some of the questions that we'll expect them to answer that obviously get deeper as they work through the questions, to sort of assess where their actual knowledge and understanding is of the words. And then obviously there'll be more embedding tasks as we go through the lesson and through the 10 weeks to build their knowledge and help them retain and use the words effectively. And all of this will be going out to, we're focusing on, jumped ahead then, we're focusing on one particular vocational area. So Anne and I have decided that engineering are our most kind of buy-in area at the moment, so we're just going to focus on English and engineering, and get them to do similar activities, which we will provide for them after Christmas. And I think, is that about it, Anne?
Yeah, that's where we're at. I mean, it was just the book, the resulting 10 words were just so surprising to us, because we started off with really so much more advanced vocabulary. So I think what everybody's saying about how things change during the course of your project, this is something that's, this was really, really different for us. So
should I stop? I'll stop sharing.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Anne and Sophie. I thought it was absolutely fascinating. Some of the things you're doing are terrific. So yeah, brilliant. I think we've got time for a question or two. Anybody wants to ask any questions?
Adam's got a good question.
It kind of answered that though, and those are the slides. So it was just really how you came to the conclusion of the words that you wanted to use. So I would have imagined that you started off with quite a big amount. I think you said 80 or something. Cut it down.
Yeah, we had 80. We literally scribbled down. We went through and model answers, standardization texts from AQA, and literally every time a word had been marked as sophisticated, we wrote it down. And yes, we started off with papers everywhere, and then just gradually that reduced and reduced. And I'm really glad that we involved the learners in that process as well, because originally it was with our team, but then there was that vital learning. When we exposed our learners to those words, they were just too difficult.
That's a very sneaky way of doing it. That's good, isn't it?
We were a bit sneaky. I think we knew if we were more blatant, then we wouldn't get the kind of honest feedback that we wanted.
No, that's good. Good.
So yeah. Sue,
yeah, I was just wondering, when they have mastered these 10 words, have you got another 10 waiting in the wings for them, or?
Yeah, so that was initially, that was the plan. So we'd kind of envisaged kind of having word waves and doing the first one, and then assessing in a milestone how many of the, how much of the vocab and how they were using it successfully. But actually, as the projects developed, our appreciation of their understanding of the vocab, even on that first word list, is, I think it's unlikely that we'll get to another 10. I think what we might just start doing is adding another 1 and another 2, because I think ultimately the target is to ensure that the 10 that we've chosen are really embedded properly, and they can use them really, proficiently, and that would be, I think, more of a success than being able to use more but less well. And that's not great English, but that's amazing.
You're developing curiosity there, aren't you, Sophie, in the sense that once you get the hook for there was a book as a kid I read called The Talking Parcel, and it was about a little spider that used to like new words. And I think sometimes when you work with learners and they see that this word can mean such exactly how they feel, then they're like, what's that word? I'd like another one. And that's what you want to do. It's like you're going to set something off, I think.
Yeah, and I hope we can differentiate as well. So learners who fly through it and can demonstrate that they use them really effectively, we can have something else to support those learners. But I know for a fact with my engineering group this year, I've got 2 engineering groups, and one will do really well and the other won't, because of the level that they're at. So I think it's going to be very much, we'll play it by ear and see what happens, basically.
Yeah. I mean, we imagined having 5 bookmarks, but yeah, I don't think we'll get to that. But
yeah. I think this is a project we talk about forever. So yeah, well done. Unfortunately, we haven't got. We have to move on. But I think the next one will be equally as interesting as well. So if I could pass over to Adam to talk to us about his project, please.
Yeah, sure. Try and share the screen. And then wait for the top to go away. Can we see that? Is that okay?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, cool. So I'm introducing myself and Dan. Is that right?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I'm introducing myself and Dan. My name's Adam Tudor. I'm a senior curriculum manager and head of English at Warrington and Vale Royal College. Kind of makes me the busiest man outside of the cabinet, I think. And also Dan, he's going to speak after me from Craven College. So I'm just going to go through my project for this year, but both of us really are focused on improving the overall experiences, the quality of teaching delivery, and hopefully outcomes for these post-16 English and maths research students. So it's a little bit different. Maybe, I don't know about everybody else, this is the third ETF OTLA project that we've been involved in at Warrington. So we've tried to expand a little bit. We'd always been involved in just myself and a colleague of mine, Elizabeth, who's now retired. And it was always English focused, but we've kind of branched out a little bit this year to try and be inclusive of maths as well. Really, it's just to go through what our overall aims were and what we've been doing and where we're up to at this point in time. So really, we're focusing on 2 particular areas this time round, whereas in the past we've been quite broad, maybe quite generalised, and we've looked at particularly construction boys and trying to improve their outcomes for English of often down at the bottom end, so they've come in with a grade 1 or a grade 2 and having to resit. But this year I fancied doing something a little bit different and looking at the grade 3-4 boundary in English and a bit of a mixed bag in maths. So really we're focusing on just 2 particular areas in both parts of study. So for maths it's measures, shape and space, and for English it's creative writing. Really what we're trying to do is adapt our approaches to the teaching of these 2 particular things. We're also trying to include some online kind of support for learners, and we've been using what's called Caboodle, which is like an online workbook that we plug into the Google Classroom for students. In maths, obviously it's really important underpinning measure, shape and space, and makes up around about 50% of what they actually do, and the creative writing elements of what's involved in English make up, obviously, as you know, if you're doing AQA, it's 25% of their entire grade, and it's often the thing that they do like to do but don't necessarily do well in. So it's the bit that they like studying, and we like teaching, but then when we review at the end of the year, a lot of them struggle to get past 15 out of 40. So there's obviously a disconnect somewhere between our passion for teaching creative writing, their enjoyment of it, and their actual skill. Okay. So in English, it's taking in account of some research students, and they're all from around the Warrington or Winsford area, which is where our other campus is based. But this is my group, and it's a bit of a mixed group. I've got health and social care girls, I've got 3 of those, and I've got 6 hospitality and catering students, a mixture of level 2 and level 3. The college, since COVID came in, is operating on a 50-50 provision with A and B weeks. So that means 1 week I have the health and social girls in, and then the week after I have the hospitality and catering guys in. And whilst they're not in college, they're on a remote working. So I needed obviously something to support that remote working, which is why we've had a look at purchasing a Caboodle package. With English, we're doing it just with the 3-4 borderline students. And what we're trying to do is get them to look at creative writing in a slightly different way. And we're coming at this as what we've started to call a course within a course approach. So what I've done is gone away and created a miniature course within a course just for creative writing. Trying to pull in a few things of that from personal study whilst I'm doing a creative writing degree, which is running alongside what I'm doing obviously in work, and also pulling in things that I can use in Caboodle to try and extend some of the vocabulary like we've been discussing in the other project, which I think is a fantastic idea, and that's getting robbed. Also to look at the structure that we're trying to give them so that they don't, as you probably know from teaching this, they often run away with themselves. The ideas become too expansive. I've got 15 characters, 16 locations, and it totally unorganized. So we're trying to give them quite a structured approach to follow. We're giving them a checklist of what they need to have, which I know can be quite prescriptive sometimes, but on that 3-4 borderline, it's often the case that they're all right getting an idea, they're all right with the vocabulary, they're okay with the structure, but there's just certain things that they miss out or they don't cover off or they don't use that doesn't get them into those mark schemes like you were looking at on that previous presentation. We're just about to start this with the English group. They're a little bit behind in terms of the scheme of learning, but that's kind of the impact of the way that we are at the minute with the 50-50 and the COVID restrictions that we have in place. So that's really the English project and what we're looking to do. For maths, it's a different group of students, but they're still research students that are in a demographically deprived area. So again, they're Warrington-based students. They are very low in confidence in maths, and they are lower than the English students. So they've got 1s, 2s, and they're currently on level 1 and level 2 programs of study. And there's a bit of a mix in this group. So we've got sports and public service students. So the project as a whole is encompassing quite a lot of different curriculum areas and a lot of abilities, whereas in the past we've always really focused on one curriculum area and one ability level, i.e. the bottom. So one thing that we're trying to do with the maths project is to build up their confidence in this kind of area of measure, shape and space with a little bit of number as well, because it makes up, like we say, 50% of the overall course. At the moment, we're using the Caboodle as a support just for the remote week learning. But once we get the feedback from students, once they do an opening survey, we'll look at doing that within the classroom and building that into the classroom provision as well. So the maths part of the project's a little bit further forward than my English part. And at the moment, it's not doing too bad. It could get a little bit better in terms of uptake whilst they're working remotely, so from home for that week. But that entails quite a lot of other issues as well, which we've mentioned in our reports and things like that. But that's where we're at for the maths one. Running alongside this, as we've done in the past, we'll be doing student action research, which involves them completing a survey at the opening of the project, which is around about now. We'll be doing that, and then at the closing of the project as well. And that's just basically a Google form that we get them to complete whilst they're in the classroom. And we've done that before, and it's usually worked really well. From the opening survey, then that informs the student council groups that we use to conduct student action research. Again, that's something we've done in the past and has been really successful. So the student council that are elected within the college as a part of the project and as a project for themselves, they're involved in the student action research and go and speaking to these English and math students. And they focus then on what questions can they ask based on what comes back from the student surveys. This year we'll look at running that remotely, and we'll also look at running that in class where it's possible, but in terms of bubbles we might not be able to do that. But it brings in those vital student to student conversations, which, as you probably know, in the past, if you've done student action research, they'll tell their fellow students something that they definitely won't tell you, and they'll be completely honest and open with everything that they say, usually to another student, especially if it's somebody that they trust. There is a little bit of incentivization involved in that. Usually what we do is we pull together the group, and we usually take them over the road for a bit of a Pizza Hut and get them involved, get their buy-in, and then afterwards at the end we'll also go and take them, or we'll bring those in for lunch so that they're all involved together. And finally that'll help me write that findings report at the end of the project. So that's pretty much where I'm at the moment and what we're doing. I think that'll go over to Dan now, won't it, Kath?
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks very much, Adam.
So
I think you've provoked a lot of thought there, so I'm sure you'll get lots of questions at lunchtime.
No worries.
You're around.
Thank you.
So yeah, if Dan would come in now, that would be great.
I'm sharing Dan's slides.
All right, okay.
Where are we? Enable editing.
Hi everyone, thanks a lot, Adam. Sue's got my slide. Oh, that's right, brilliant. Okay, so hi, I'm Dan from Craven College. Like Adam, I was involved in the project last year as well, and then this is slightly different, and like a lot of other people, looking at sort of focusing on GCSE students, and with a bit of a focus on mental health and well-being, really, and how we can support students in terms of their exam experience. Thank you, Sue. Okay, do you want to just flick through all of them so they're all there? I didn't realise I've done all that animation. The last one is better. So, yeah. One more. Thank you. Okay, so the aim of this project was to look at all the other things which impact on students' performance in GCSE exams. We've always had an issue with this anyway, regardless of what's happened, last year, obviously, with COVID and lockdown and cancelling exams and everything. I think to some extent with Craven College in Skipton. It's a quite a quiet rural college, just on the edge of a little market town, but not far from like Leeds and Bradford and Colne and Burnley. So we get a lot of students that come up, choose to come up to us from the cities and towns, kind of because of it being quite a safe environment, a relatively calm environment, perhaps compared to some of the bigger city colleges. And so for that reason, I think we do attract students. We have quite a lot of home educated students. We have students that have been out of education, even before this year in this situation. Students who have been in and out of school and suffer with their mental health and anxiety. Obviously, this year with the schools being with the summer exams being cancelled, we've got school leavers who have had no previous experience of actually sitting the exams. So I expected, that would lead to an increased number of students with anxiety around the exams in English and maths. Like other projects, this is focusing on both English and maths, although my background is more English. And so we were looking at how we could develop, how we could sort of remove the barriers to these exams and allow the English and maths tutors to focus on the subject knowledge and the content and the exam preparation in an academic sense, because we found in the past that the English and maths tutors do get a lot of their time and energy taken up with supporting students with really the pastoral side and even right up until exam day, dealing with that when students are just worried about physically getting there on time, as they well prepared and everything. So also, though, this is separate from the exam access arrangements. So it isn't about looking at extra time and disabilities and support arrangements in that sense. It's the kind of all the other stuff which was just before kind of getting, falling through the gaps a little, I suppose, not really recognised as it being anyone's job to work out what to do and how to support kids to do. So we're looking at removing all of these barriers, focusing on grades 3 students working towards GCSE, mainly 16 to 18, some that are 15-year-olds, I mentioned that might have been home educated before, and looking towards building up like a tailored individual package for them, really. Thank you, Sue. Could you move it on, please? There's not so much writing on the other slide, I think. So what we did first was, back in the summer with my colleagues, we just sort of brainstormed all of the different factors which impact on their exam performance outside of their ability in maths and English. So if all of these things will be familiar to you, and once you start thinking about it, you realise, right, even the rules, the posters that we have in exam rooms, are they accessible for students? Have they seen them before? Is it familiar language? Is the fact that we've got posters up and rules a barrier that causes stress? Equipment, obviously, more for maths, calculators, all the maths equipment. Get into the exam room, practical things, the students fed and watered, thinking about now in the situation with students at home and, parent situations and being unemployed or having kids having caring responsibilities, all of those things. And we were finding there's such a lot in here really, and there's more now than ever before. Even things like a clock, right? Students don't, even students can't read an analog clock. They need a digital clock. You say this is when the exam starts and ends, but are they able to glance at the clock and figure out from that how much time they've got left? And also things like sensory things like quiet. So, if you're hungry and your stomach's gurgling, you've all been there and you sat in an exam or you're invigilating an exam and you're more worried about whether everyone's going to hear your stomach gurgling because it's quiet, and how can we just remove that as a barrier? Because surely that's having an impact on students, and we've got to help students to anticipate it. Thank you, Sue. So the aims were broadly to explore these issues collaboratively, to help them to overcome them, to support learners to try out different things leading up to their exams, and create a kind of a specific sort of package for them really, and also to look at developing CPD or like raising awareness really. It's less formal than CPD, but working with the invigilators, because you know, the invigilators are trained up to do a job within all the rules of JCQ, but are they aware of enough of the individual needs of learners, and they have a role to play as well in this, and then also looking at wider CPD and raising awareness across college. Thank you. So the plan was to create to work with the support staff under some guidance from English and Maths tutors, but like I said, I wanted the English and Maths tutors to be less involved really than they have been. The aim was to allow them to not be as involved as they have been. And so this is more about support staff across college, and for students to create something similar to that. You can see that outline there, a profile which can be shared about students, like students who have a learning disability. You know, we'll have a profile about them for anyone who's supporting them, to create kind of an exam-specific version of that. Thank you. So if you want to click through, only see there, I think. Yeah, thank you. So when we thought about these, the activities, it kind of seems like that they would fit into these categories quite neatly. That we've got so practical things, which would be the travelling, the equipment, and leading up to the real exams, sort of putting in place some things during the mock assessment. The procedures, so do students understand the procedures for exams and why they're there? The physical environment, so even down to like students going and if we know well enough in advance, can the students go into the classroom or the hall or the manager's office that they will be sitting in for their exam, and literally like familiarise themselves with their environment. I suppose it may be useful to say as well, I'm working on this from a personal point of view with my son has been diagnosed with autism, and this has been quite a journey for me as well, in terms of like understanding some of the sensory needs that he has, and going, well, like, you know, all that time when we thought that it was to do something else, it's as simple as a smell or a lighting issue, or, you know, something that can be seemingly minor, that, you know, you can just make a slight adjustment and that have a huge effect. And I think a lot of the students that we have, they don't realise that they have a sensory need, or that they have a sensory overload, you know, and if they're suddenly in an office where they're next door to some heating pipes or something, and there's a strange sound coming from the corner of the room, that could impact on them as well. Sorry, where am I? Psychological preparation, dealing with stress and anxiety, and helping them before all of that to build up their coping mechanisms. And then, as I said, some training for invigilators, perhaps some support stuff. And I had this idea of creating a role of sort of exam ushers. So not the managers and the tutors that are there to check that everyone's there or to do last minute revision, and not the invigilators and the exam team, but people who are like when you go to the theatre and you come in late, who reassure you and show you to your seat with a torch and let you know that it'll be all right, and have you got your ticket and have you been to the loo? You know, those sort of people that are just a friendly, welcoming face on the day of the exams, because it's a mad rush, and you know, as managers and teachers, we're worried about, is everybody there and do they know what they've got to do in the exam? So that's the plan. Thank you, Sue. I have to say, progress so far has been hampered by lots of factors that I won't go into, but it's fairly limited. But I'm positive about having a little bit more space and time and sort of freedom to be able to run with this for the rest of the year, and I'm actually really looking forward to getting a little bit more progress into the next term in the new year. We've identified students who would benefit from this by at first doing a Google Forms questionnaire, sort of over enrolment and over the first term, about, you know, have they sat exams before, what were their barriers to it, how anxious were they feeling, if they've never sat an exam before, how will they feel about it, and sort of what you know, in terms of their their specific needs, if they're able to articulate them, or if they might feel anxious but not know why. It's just to sort of identify students that might benefit, really. And then we've got a handful of students who we're starting now to have support specifically from a wellbeing practitioners who are working with the student services team in college. So those are students who've identified as having missed exams before, or wouldn't have been ready even if they had gone ahead last year because of their high levels of anxiety. They know that about themselves, and they know that they need to sort of get help with it. And very often these are very academic, high flying, really able kids, and that's the sad thing, is when you see that they've got the academic ability. They're motivated. Sometimes the anxiety is linked to kind of being so conscientious that the anxiety rises up there because they want to do so well, and they put so much pressure on themselves. And I think we see that, don't we, a lot coming from schools. We have, as well in Skipton, 2 selective schools, the main high schools in Skipton, and we've seen a lot of students from there that haven't sat any exams in year 11 because they felt like there's such a huge pressure on them. So then we've got to look at progress assessments in January, and then progress assessments, every half term, and then mock assessments in January, and just doing some feedback after each of those about how it went and what you felt you might need it. And I'm really working from there, building up these profiles and support with staff across the college. Sorry, I feel like I'm rattling through it. I think we did that.
Thanks very much, Dan.
Yeah, I think that's it. I've talked about the barriers and the next steps just then, I think. So yeah, that's all. I think. If there's any questions?
Anybody any questions for Dan?
I've got one, if I may. Well, a couple of really, Dan. I heard somebody had introduced mindfulness for the learners in preparation for exams, and learners had found that quite useful. So I just thought I'd share that. But I wondered to what extent Charlotte's project with the mindset and the resilience could be adapted for exam anxiety.
Yeah, definitely. I think this whole issue of exam anxiety is a huge one, isn't it? It's growing, and it'd be really useful to get ideas from others and to collaborate on that. Because I'm by no means an expert in I just know that it's an issue that's impacting on a lot of kids, and it's all a bit unknown. But also I take the point from someone asked before, about there's a little bit of I sense a little bit of sort of cynicism about the idea of positive mindset in a way, just because of it being a term that's kind of becomes overused, and like with resilience, it can be. I think kids have heard it a little bit too much, and they almost they don't see it as being real, and so perhaps this needs to be kind of rephrased for them. And I do find a bit of cynicism in my team as well, and colleagues about that, and it being quite a hard thing to measure. So yeah, we're keen to see how other people approach that. Yeah.
Oh, cheers. Thank you very much, Dan. I'm just sort of conscious of time, and but I'd like to thank you very much. I think you've raised such an important issue that affects so many people and is often quite neglected. So yeah. So can I just thank everybody for the presentations? I think I was absolutely sort of stunned by the amount of work that everyone has done in such difficult and challenging times for yourselves and for the students. So congratulations and well done to everyone. I think from what I've been looking at chat, I think everyone has so many more questions and things that they want to discuss with you. So I hope that they're able to do that. I've certainly enjoyed and continue to enjoy working with you and mentoring on these projects. So I think it's probably time for everyone to have a bit of lunch now and refresh yourselves before the next.